half an hour, 4 torpedoes went off under our stern, just missed us. And we kept on going, but Alec Lofton, who lives across the river, his ship turned away and pursued them and sank them a couple of days later. But it was it was well written up because it was the longest search. This man was unbelievable. He went down to unprecedented depths. He came up in the night to charge his batteries, and when you approached him, he shot your searchlight out, and it just went on and on.
He was an uncanny enemy.
That's right.
He was challenging.
So then, after that was over, they sent us around back through the Straits of Gibraltar to Ireland, and then to England, where we were being assigned to the support groups that were going over to Normandy. So we arrived at the Normandy beachhead on the morning of the 7th, and were assigned to stay with the battleship Arkansas. And she was anchored off the coast there. We went out and anchored close to her and hadn't been there half an hour before German shells began to arrive. And we scuttled away from there. And the Arkansas got underway and opened fire on the German batteries on Point de Houx, a high head of ground up there about which much has been written. And after a while, the shooting there stopped. And Katie and I went back to the Normandy beachhead a few years ago, and for the first time I saw the top of that mountain, still all churned up by the 12-inch shells. We were there for nearly 2 months.
Wow.
And
boy, you were really...
We gave them fire support. The land troops were well back from the beachhead by that time, but running into all kind of resistance inland. And then we were sent to bombard the city of Cherbourg, which was the French port, nearest French port, much needed by the army. And we went to Cherbourg one bright sunny afternoon in a misty day, and two groups of destroyers and a couple of battleships and cruisers. And as we were approaching them through the mist, a shell just fell on the battleship Texas from nowhere. The Germans had seen us coming. And then it broke up into a melee, and which I tried to paint here with the destroyer and the battleships and the cruisers in the background going off there. And we just spent 2 hours or 3 hours with these shells just following us all the way.
Wow.
And it was a very, very enlightening experience because we never knew what was going to happen next.
You must have been scared to death.
So that
talk about an adrenaline rush, huh?
Then when that all had passed away and Cherbourg was being occupied by the Americans and opened up to the troops coming up from Normandy, we went to the French coast and the Mediterranean and supported the landings there. And we came back to the United States when that was finished. Well, that was 3 battle stars, I guess.
Talk about going away a baby boy, and coming back a gnarly veteran.
That's right, and never getting hurt in the process.
Oh, wow, it must have been terrifying at times.
Well, they took these ships and they had to do some particular kind of mine sweeping with the battleships and aircraft carriers, which moved at high speeds. They converted them into mine sweepers. Took off a gun and put up all this heavy mine sweeping gear in the stern. We went out to Pearl Harbor and then through the Panama Canal to Pearl Harbor and then on to Ulithi, one of the lagoon islands there, and finally into Okinawa,
so you had
where we were supposed to do mine sweeping. Well,
both theaters then.
Well, the casualties were so heavy at Okinawa that they soon called on these ships, which were essentially destroyers, had the fire control gear and the guns. And we went out on the picket station and stayed there for weeks, I guess. I've forgotten, just burning ships all around us. And while we were there, we ran into the biggest attack of the war from the Japanese in the air. And it was, I just remember, a rainy, misty day when we were 4 destroyers, 2 of them working along a little island called Ieshima, and 2 of us a little farther away heading out to be refueled, when these 300, 400 aircraft descended on these 2 little destroyer minesweepers. one of them, but both of them, they were surrounded by aircraft. They were kamikaze types, and they were literally almost blown to pieces. The Rodman had holes all the way through and out the other side. The Emmons, her sister ship, when we got there, was burning, and we had to lie off and try to see if we could pick up anybody when we couldn't see anything but dead people on her. But finally she was drifting on the beach, and nobody knew whether her confidential publications had been destroyed. So we were told to sink her. So we fired 95 rounds into her in this little ship, and she went down. And we never knew whether there were people alive in the ship or not. But that too was another well-documented, well-written-up episode.
They make that decision based on security, national security.
They had to. It was the only thing to do, and